Hello, welcome back everyone. It's Business Live with me, Darryl Kwao. Now, the dust has barely settled after German captain. I think that's the wrong story to be reading for you tonight. I want to begin with the Continental Free Trade Agreement and the Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat, which would be headquartered in Accra, would be fully operational from January next year. Ghana was last week given the right to host the headquarters, which would help coordinate implementation of the agreement. Trade Minister Alan Tremantin tells Joy Business that the Chief Executive Officer for the Secretariat would be announced by December this year. We'll bring you more on that story subsequently. Meanwhile, local manufacturers have been advised to be mindful of their cost and quality of products to stay competitive under the Continental Free Trade Agreement.
In anticipation of this, even before this was signed, we knew what we needed to do. These 7 clusters, we've already taken steps to propel ourselves to take advantage of this CFTA. So under each of these 7 clusters, I want to quickly tell you what the government is already doing to be able to take advantage of the CFTA. If you take enhancing productive capacity, the evidence is there. One district, one factory, the strategic anchor industries. If we start producing cars in Ghana, which is going to be hopefully very soon, it means that we have already put ourselves in a situation where we are taking advantage of the market. And a gentleman here said something very interesting when we were coming to the room. He said that, what, you have already, yes, he said, our projects and programs are already tailor-made to fit into the CFTA. One region, one park, all the industrial parks that we are developing together with the private sector. SME development, and then the promotion of standards. Because of limited time, I don't want to get into the details. Now, under the trade facilitation cluster, we have customs management reforms. You know, you've heard about the paperless reform at the ports. And then we are implementing the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. On the trade-related infrastructure, the biggest or the largest expansion program in Africa, in the ports, has been completed in Ghana. $1.5 billion. The network of roads. The reason why we're making noise about railways is that we know that very soon, it's not as if we want to build a railway from here to France, but at least we can build a railway to Burkina Faso, you know, to take advantage of the CFTA. And so we are investing in the airports. This is all part of our plan ahead of the CFTA.
Apologies for the mix-up there. So that was the Trade Minister, Alan Tremantin, addressing a press conference earlier today. Now, as I've been saying, the Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat, which would be headquartered in Accra, would be fully operational from January next year. Now, Ghana was last week given the right to host the headquarters, which would help coordinate implementation of the agreement. Now, my colleague, George Yafe, has been speaking with the Trade Minister, Alan Tremantin.
By January 2020, the Secretary General, the key staff would all have been recruited. All the systems, operational systems would have been activated. And latest by March 2020, everything to do with the Secretariat should have been completed. And by latest by mid-2020, you know, actual trading would already have...
Honorable, will Ghana also have the right to settle on the CU, or it will still be an AU decision?
Again, the framework agreement of the CFTA has prescribed the selection process for the Secretary General, just as they did for the selection of the host country. So the beauty about this one is that you have the framework agreement, that's the general framework agreement, which defines all the principles, the guidelines, all the questions you are asking about, the answers are in the framework agreement. But beyond that, to make it operational, there's also the protocol on goods, which has also been negotiated and signed, that deals with rules of origin, tariff concessions, non-tariff barriers, phytosanitary measures. All those things have also been negotiated. So you have a protocol in goods, and again, you have protocol in services. And this is very significant because even in the WTO, we've not been able to negotiate fully the protocol in services. So there's the protocol on goods, there's the protocol on services, and also very interestingly, there's now a protocol on dispute settlement, which means that unlike us is in the case now for ECOWAS, if there's an infringement of any of the provisions, let's say including dumping or any other trade remedies, you can file a dispute.
All right, so you heard the Trade Minister, Alan Kyerematen, still on the Continental Free Trade Agreement. We can hear from the Executive Secretary of the Ghana International Trade Commission, Frank Ejekum, who has been speaking about the need for firms to up their game to participate effectively under the agreement.
The Continental Free Trade Agreement will bring together 54 African countries with a combined population of more than 1 billion people on a common market. This will make it one of the largest free trade areas since the formation of the World Trade Organization, given Africa's huge population. Ghana was last selected by heads of state and government to host the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Speaking to Joy Business, Executive Secretary of the Ghana International Trade Commission, Frank Ejekum, urged local producers to improve their competitiveness.
Make sure that the quality of your product is comparable to that on the international market. And this has been a basic problem with industries, not only in Ghana, but with all developing countries, so-called. They have a problem in terms of the quality of their products, the packaging of their products. We also need to take care of the workforce and manpower that go into the production levels that we want, and also take care of the economics and the production inputs, so that they are able to produce at a level that really it makes them competitive. Now that we have Africa free trade, continental free trade coming in, it means that we need to be able to compete at a very high level.
He also noted local producers must not just focus on the African market, but foreign ones as well.
The market really is not only in Africa, and as much as we should trade in Africa, and everybody knows that if we are able to make our standpoint in Africa, that's almost half of the way gone. But we're not looking at Africa, we are looking at beyond Africa, Asia, Europe, wherever. So that our products also become household names, like German products, American products, our Chinese. We should be able to, and I'm sure that should be the target of any manufacturing industry in Ghana.
For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklu.
You're watching Business Live. Now, away from the Continental Free Trade Agreement, the Ministry of Energy is expected to complete work on transforming the existing gas master plan into an act for regulation. The new law will provide enabling environment for investors as well as help government to adapt current trends in the gas industry. Now, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia disclosed this at the ongoing Ghana International Petroleum Conference in Accra.
Years after oil and gas production in Ghana, the country is yet to boast of a standard law for regulating the gas market. As part of measures to develop an exclusive policy on the sector, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says the current gas master plan is being enhanced into law to regulate the sector. Dr. Bawumia, who was speaking at this year's Ghana International Petroleum Conference, added the new law will provide the enabling environment for investors as well as help government in catching up with modern trends in the gas industry.
Minister of Energy would conclude the process of realignment and commence the process of legislative consolidation of the Gas Master Plan into a Gas Act. This is an important requirement for development of Ghana into a petrochemical hub in the sub-region. Government recognizes that there are some regulatory challenges that must be addressed to provide regulatory certainty and predictability in the downstream natural gas market. There is nothing that really encourages investment by the private sector than regulatory certainty.
Dr. Baumia also hinted of a master plan for petroleum transportation currently under study, after which it will be implemented. He believes this will solve the many challenges in transporting petroleum products in the country.
Actually, as a matter of fact, this was one of the subjects for our deliberations at the economic management team just yesterday. This will facilitate the development of an alternative transportation infrastructure for petroleum products such as railway lines, pipelines, and river barges to major demand centers across the country. This infrastructure development will also link Ghana with our sub-regional markets and further deepen our regional integration agenda, as well as fulfill the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministerial Committee working on this master plan has finalized its work.
As part of activities at the conference, stakeholders will be deliberating on the deregulation of petroleum industry in Africa. Ebenezer Sabatis report for Joy Business.
Meanwhile, the Energy Ministry has justified the reintroduction of Stabilisation Levy on some petroleum products. The National Petroleum Authority last month directed the oil marketing companies to start applying the levy on products. Now, this resulted in petrol prices attracting a 12 peso increase per litre, whilst 10 pesos was placed on diesel. Now, some of the oil marketing companies had argued the move would result in prices going up at the pumps, but Deputy Minister of Energy, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, is challenging this claim.
To be restored for two reasons. The Ministry of Finance thinks that because it is a levy, when you don't charge, then you are taking a decision which requires parliamentary approval. And therefore, we needed to restore it. And if we will have to withdraw it, we need to come to Parliament for Parliament to consider that decision. And secondly, we have had to restore it because prices generally have been stable. And I can tell you that when we even restored it, prices on the domestic market were flat. In fact, in this current window, the window of 1st July to 15th, 16th July, prices have fallen. Petrol has reduced by about 2.1%, and the trend is the same for other products. And so if the essence of the stabilization levy is to stabilize prices, and prices have been stable, then there is no reason why it should not be.
You don't subscribe to the argument with that.
Thirdly, the levy is collected not just for price stabilization, it is also for purposes of price recovery. That is subsidizing premixed fuel and fuel oil. And to the extent that because we're not charging, the fund was depleted, you then had no sufficient balance in the accounts, in the fund, to play the other rules the levy is meant to play, which is subsidizing premixed fuel and then fuel oil.
We're arguing that could make the prices go up, and that is why we've not seen the reduction we are looking for if this levy was not there.
Yeah, but if the levy is there, it is also for other purposes. And as I just indicated to you, prices have been stable. If you have prices changing within the 2% range, that is still stability.
You're watching Business Live. Now, some news on where we stand as far as inflation is concerned. Inflation for the month of June has been pegged at 9.1% as compared with 9.4% recorded in May 2019. The Upper West, Bono, Ahafo, Western and Ashanti regions recorded the highest levels of inflation. Now, Deputy Government Statistician Arba Forsen has been explaining the main price drivers.
Year-on-year inflation rate for June 2019 was 9.1%. This means that the change in the general price level was 9.1% over the 1-year period from June 2018 to June 2019. The year-on-year inflation rate for May 2019 was 9.4%. Looking at the monthly change, that is from month to month, we see that the monthly change rate for June 2019 was 0.9%. This means that the general price level went up by 0.9% between May and June 2019. The monthly change rate recorded for May 2019 was 0.9%. This shows us the price changes on a monthly basis and on a yearly basis. So we can see there that for May 2019, if we compare the price index, which was 238.6 in May 2019, with that of June 2019, it was 240.5%. And that translates into a monthly change rate of 0.9% in May and 0.8% in June.
It's a Wednesday, and so it's time to bring you the Joy Business Van. Now, Yaba Minta decided last year she would start making fresh juices. What she thought was going to be something small for just family and close friends has now become a flourishing business, and she's already thinking of going global. Ya is the owner of fresh juice startup Mekwa's Fresh Squeeze, and she's our featured tonight on the Joy Business Van. It sounds easy, doesn't it? A fresh juice business. Get your fruits, squeeze and bottle them. Not quite. There are many other things to think about, and I discovered that at Mekwa's Fresh Squeeze, a fresh juice startup owned by Yaba Minta. Hi.
Hello there.
First, I get a tour of a production facility.
This is the 30-liter blender. It crushes all the fruits into juices before we sieve them.
Okay.
Yeah. And these are industrial blenders, orange juices, and our fruit extractor.
So depending on what fruit you are...
Yes. Basically, yeah, we use it for those who want light juices. Most people don't want their juice very thick, so you use it, you get the juice very light.
Okay.
Yes.
And we head next to the fridge.
Yes.
All these equipment in her kitchen transformed into a juice factory, producing thousands of bottles of fresh juice. And to think it was not exactly one of her life ambitions.
The brain behind it was my daughter. She got sick, I think in 2016 December. Her tummy was hurting so bad, so we took her to the doctor. And the doctor said the stomach was sore and all sorts of things, so we should stop the fizzy drinks and start with natural fruits chops for her to be taken for some time. So we came home after her admission for about 2 weeks. We came home well. Then I will start by introducing her to fruit juices. I'll do it, then I'll ask her, taste it. Do you like the taste? Then she'll say no. I'll do some and she'll say, okay, this is really nice. I want to be taking this one to school every day. So we started by doing that.
Ya then began to make a little more for family and close friends. An unfortunate incident, however, triggered production on a larger scale. She lost her husband, and Ya, who was then running a boutique, had to fend for her family.
It became difficult. It became very difficult because the boutique, it was basically crediting and living your life and a kid, your life or your daughter's life on crediting stuff to people wasn't going to be the best. So I decided that, okay, let me do this. Since this, I have customers and people who buy it even daily and weekly basis. I can add it to it.
Ya had to sit back and strategize on how to create a marketable fresh juice brand. A year on, it appears she succeeded. Today, she's unable to keep track of the bottles of fresh juice she produces. She supplies for top hotels and sets out for social and corporate events. As simple as it may seem, Ya and her team go through a lot, from getting fresh fruits to processing, packaging, storage and distribution. What keeps Mekwats ahead of the market is its unique taste and fruit juice recipes, about 12 varieties in all. It can be challenging though.
So our main challenge now is the power outages. You be in the middle of production, then poof, the power goes off. Then you have a timeline to meet, especially with the hotels. They need it for their breakfast, and you can't go and tell them, give them excuses. Yes, otherwise you're going to lose your contract and all that. So it's a major challenge now, and funds to also expand. When normally it's a startup, banks are scared to really invest and give you that huge amount, or an investor is afraid to give in bigger money, not knowing the next step.
Fruits are easily perishable and fresh juices have a shorter shelf life. That means Ya and her team have to be proactive in marketing, and social media has been very helpful, catching the attention of celebrities. She tells me she is fulfilled.
And the feedback we get from our clients, it's super. It's something to boast of. So you are there and you get a call. I tasted the juice from this social person and it was really nice. I want to order. That gives us like the strength and all that to push ahead and do it better each time. Yeah.
Ya is currently supported by her family in production, but she has a bigger vision for Mekwats to build a global brand.
We are working hard to be the best in the juice industry, both locally and internationally. We want Mekwats to be recognized on all shelves within Africa, outside Africa. Like you go to everywhere you meet Mekwats fruit juice. That is our vision in long term. Yeah.
And while your business idea doesn't have to be sophisticated, and Ya is proof of that. Join us next week, same time, for another edition of the Joy Business Vibe.